Okay, so welcome everybody, and we'll get started now. So, yes, so Creative Europe. For this is the current program, so 2021-2027. And just to go over it again, it's 2.44 billion over the 7 years. We have 56% in for the media sub-program, 36% for the culture sub-program, and then 13% for the cross-sectoral strand. It is very much aligned with the EU agenda. Okay, so it's just wanted to really drill home the fact that, you know, the sustainability and greening of the industry and diversity, gender balance and inclusion are extremely important to the EU. As you all know, it's incredibly important to that agenda, but also it is, you can see it throughout all of our calls now. All of our calls have 5 points. At the moment, it's 5 points per each of these. So you really need to be thinking about this, and we will talk about this later. But it is very important to have this to sort of drill this home that the importance of this. Anyway, we'll talk about it later. Okay. So we have media. So today we're going to focus on media, and we're going to focus on 3 different calls. So for media, just to give an overall view of it, it's 1.427 billion, which sounds like a lot over 7 years, but there's lots of calls and lots of deadlines. So it trickles down very, very quickly. So it would be supporting Europe's audiovisual and film sectors. On audience side of it, it's new distribution channels, strengthened audience development, policies, promoting discussion and exchange, content, which is what we're talking about today, collaboration, innovation for high quality works. And the business side is boosting innovation, competitiveness, and talent. So a quick overview of the audience and the business clusters. It's divided now into 3 clusters. So we got the audience, which focuses on networks of European cinema, which is Europa Cinemas, really is what gets funding out of that. European festivals, both single and networks of festivals. Films on the Move, which used to be the selective distribution scheme, which is now focused on for sales agents, and then the money cascades down to distributors. And then we have audience development and film education and subtitling of cultural content. Then on business side of it, we have markets and networks, film distribution, film sales, and innovative tools and business models. Okay. So focus on the content cluster. We have European Slate and Mini Slate. We are not discussing Mini Slate today. Okay, so Slate development, as you know, it's Slate development for 3 to 5 projects over a period of 3 years, and it's focusing on the companies. Whereas Mini Slate was brought in for the low capacity countries, and then they can apply with 2 to 3 projects. So Ireland isn't part. We're not a low capacity country. I don't think we used to be years and years ago, but we've just been doing too well recently. So we're not a low capacity country anymore. Those countries would be most of the Eastern European countries, as well as Portugal, Greece, Luxembourg. I think that would be that they would be the low capacity countries at the moment. So we're not going to be talking about them because it's not really relevant for us. So we'll talk about Slate development. We'll talk about European co-development. The video games and immersive content development, we're not going to cover today. We have a separate info session on this Friday. So if you are interested, give us a shout. The information anyway is on our website, so you can join that. It's at 11 o'clock on Friday. And then we're also going to cover TV and online content. So these are the 3. So Slate, co-development, and TV and online content, which is production. Okay. So kicking off Slate funding, I'll hand you over to Eibhlín, who'll bring you through Slate. Oh, you're muted. Hang on.
Sorry.
There you go.
Good morning, everyone. Míle fáilte isteach. So we'll start with European Slate funding, which is aimed at companies with a track record in the international market. And the idea is to help them scale up and compete at a global level. And as it says there, to reduce risk, invest in talent and creativity, and to support growth. So next slide, Orla. So the timetable and budget. So the deadline is coming quite soon, on the 25th of January. So if you're thinking of applying for Slate, you should really be starting now to think about it. Results will be communicated in June 2023. The budget is 19.5 million. So quite a lot of money there. The duration of projects, it's over 36 months, so 3 years. And you can look for longer, but you need to do so before the end of that period, and you need to have a justification why you are looking for an extension. So the objectives of the Slate funding scheme to foster the competitiveness of European independent production companies and increase their economic weight on the market. So basically to make them stronger so that they can scale up and compete with players from other countries and other industries. Increase the capacity of audiovisual producers to develop projects with the potential to circulate throughout Europe and beyond. So the focus is on accessing the international market. So strong, ambitious projects that have the capacity to find an audience worldwide. To facilitate European and international co-production and give a possibility to emerging talents to direct a short film supported by experienced companies. So companies applying for Slate can include a short film, but it must be from an emerging director. So somebody who hasn't had a commercial success. They may have had a festival success, but not a commercial success with the short film. So the type of projects that will be funded, so it's development of animation, creative documentary or fiction projects with high creative value and cultural diversity, wide cross-border exploitation potential. They have to be intended for commercial exploitation, so either cinema release, TV broadcasting, or on platforms. And you can include the short film by an emerging director, as we mentioned already. And applicants are encouraged to develop strategies for marketing and distribution from the outset to improve the audience reach potential, and to cooperate with operators from different media countries. Can be co-producers, but it can also be sales agents, distributors, and so on, broadcasters. Strengthen their competitiveness by consolidating their investment capacity in the development phase. Expand their activities and their innovation capacity to explore new fields and markets, and to develop adequate strategies to ensure a more sustainable and more environmentally respectful industry, and to ensure gender balance, inclusion, diversity, and representativeness. So as Orla mentioned earlier, across all the media calls now, there are 5 points for each of these priorities. One which is the greening and sustainability, and one for gender balance and diversity and inclusion. And it's important that you have a strategy for these, that it's not just saying we're going to do that we are doing this or we're going to do this, but that the company has a real sustainability strategy and a real strategy around diversity and inclusion and gender balance. Okay, so not everyone can apply. In order to be eligible to apply, first of all, you need to be an independent European audiovisual company, but you also have to demonstrate recent experience in producing works that were distributed internationally. So only one applicant can apply, so you can't apply with a consortium. Only one application as an applicant for either Slate, mini Slate, or co-development. So this means there are 3 different development schemes apart from the video games, and you can only apply for one of them. So if you apply for Slate in January, you cannot apply for co-development in April. And obviously you have to choose Slate or mini Slate if you're in a position to do so. That is, if you're in a low capacity country, you have the choice, but we don't have the choice. So for us, it's Slate or co-development. And you can't be a beneficiary of a Slate funding grant signed during a period of 12 months prior to the deadline. So that basically means anyone who was successful this year in the 2022 call cannot apply in January, but those who were funded in 2021 can apply. So the eligible participants need to be independent companies. So you can't have majority control by a broadcaster or a platform. And that's considered more than 25% of a share capital. You need to be an audiovisual production company. That means in your constitution or memo of arts, the main objective of the company must be shown to be audiovisual production. It needs to be established in one of the media countries and owned directly or by majority participation by nationals from media countries. So on this area here, so the company needs to be one of the media countries. So Republic of Ireland obviously is in the EU, but there are other countries not in the EU that are media countries. But just to be aware, for those in Northern Ireland, companies in Northern Ireland cannot apply. However, there is a document that you need to fill out about the nationality of the people involved in companies. So if you were in a position where you have somebody from Northern Ireland in your company as a shareholder, they can claim Irish citizenship, so that's fine. So citizens from Northern Ireland are still eligible, but companies from Northern Ireland are not.
I think this is a really important bit, hence the red writing. This was, I mean, you know, and we noticed that in applications over the last year, like this clause has always been in media, has always been in the Slate, it's always been in the media calls, and it's only really in the last year that it's come up with a lot of difficulty because of Brexit. So it's nationals of media countries, because, you know, over the last year, there were projects with, you know, shareholders of the company have been living here for 10 years, but they're still UK citizens. And they didn't think of it, and they just put it in as company because their company's established here, they're doing very well, but they were deemed ineligible because they were nationals of the UK. So just be extra careful. So it's like if your company is 50-50, that won't be 50 UK and 50 Ireland, you won't be eligible. It has to be over 50% of shareholding has to be from media countries. So just be really careful. If you have any doubt at all, just have a look at the shareholding of your company.
Okay. So eligible to be, in order to be able to apply, you also have to demonstrate a track record. And for Slate funding, you need to demonstrate that you have produced 2 previous projects. So the bar is quite high. It needs to be 2 previous projects since January 2016, either an animation fiction or a documentary of minimum 24 minutes. If it's a VR project, there isn't any duration limit. And they need to have actually been released in cinema. So the distribution has to have physically taken place in at least 3 countries other than your own, so 3 foreign countries before the deadline. So if you're applying on the 25th of January, it needs to have been distributed at 24th of January at the latest. All releases need to have been of a commercial nature, so screenings in film festivals do not count.
You know, a contract from sales agents or distributors saying that no, it will be broadcast in these countries in 2023 isn't enough. Because you have to have the actual proof, even though you don't put up the proof when you're applying, but they will come looking for it. If they're not happy that they can't find it themselves on the internet and it's not obvious to them, they will come looking for that. So you just have to make sure that you have that proof tucked away.
Yeah, and if it's 3 different broadcasters involved, if it's a linear broadcast, you need 3 different broadcasters in 3 different foreign countries. It doesn't have to be European countries, it can be anywhere in the world.
And if you have, like, say, Apple, you know, if you have your project on Apple, that would be a sales report, and then you can see the different countries. So that's fine, because you know, for a streamer, that's fine. But it's just with the broadcasters, it just have to be 3 separate ones.
Yes, for online distribution, they look for a revenue report. That can be difficult with some of the platforms who don't want to release them or whatever. Sales agents can help you there if you have a sales agent. For TV, a contract with a broadcaster needs to be accompanied by something like a TV listing to show that the program actually went out on air. So it's important to be aware of that you have that proof to hand. You don't supply it at the time of application. So the companies, to demonstrate the track record of having distributed and produced and distributed 2 previous work, you can either use the company's track record or a personal track record, and you can have a mix of both for the 2 different works. If it's a company's track record, you must demonstrate that the company was the sole production company, or in the case of a co-production, that the applicant company was the major co-producer in the financing plan, or the delegate producer. That's more a French term. It doesn't happen very much here, where one company delegates the production to another. If you're using a personal track record, they only accept an on-screen credit as a producer or delegate producer, again, this French term. And the personal on-screen credit has to be from the CEO of the company or a shareholder in the company, not anyone else. And it needs to say produced or produced by. They don't accept associate producer, co-producer, executive producer. Has to actually say producer or produced by. All this information has to be uploaded into the media database on the online portal. And as we said, they'll come looking for all this proof at a later stage.
Now, just to let you know, like this media database, for anybody who hasn't applied already, I think some of you have. The media database is now part of the new system. There's a brand new application system, brand new shiny sparkly application system that is quite onerous, and that's why we're here. So we're not going to go through all of that today, because only as long as you're actually applying in the deadlines coming up do you need to know this. So you only need to know this if you're actually applying coming up, because it's incredibly there's so much in it that we will do separate sessions. We will do technical sessions. We can do one-to-one Zoom sessions as well to bring you through the whole process. So we are there to help, but not necessarily covering it all today.
Okay, so the kind of projects that are supported then, so a slate of minimum 3 and maximum 5 eligible works. Has to be animation, creative documentary, or fiction projects. So fiction can either be feature film or it can be TV drama series. About the creative documentary, again, it's always difficult to give a definition of this, but it's not factual TV programming, current affairs or anything like that. It's the kind of documentary that you might go and see in a film festival, something with creative elements, author driven, director's point of view. If you are in any doubt about whether your project counts as a creative documentary, the easiest thing is to get in touch with us, send us a 1-page outline. Sorry, somebody speaking there? So I'll continue. Yeah, so send us a 1-page outline and we can tell you whether we think it fits or it could be made to fit a creative documentary. So it can be one-off or series. They have to be intended to be commercially exploited. There are different durations then dependent on the platform that it's aimed at. For cinema, it's a minimum 60 minutes. If it's TV or a digital platform, 24 minutes for animation, 50 minutes for documentary, 90 minutes for fiction. And for VR, non-linear projects, there's no minimum. We should say as well that if it's a series, it's the total duration of the series. So you could have animation, that have 5 minutes. but in a series that make up more than the 24 minutes, for example. So this is very important, which is why it's in red. The first day of principal photography cannot take place until at least 10 months after the deadline. So this you fill in online in the system. It used to be, we used to be sent the applications as an attachment, and we would pick up on this straight away if somebody puts in an earlier date. But now you're putting it directly into the portal, and we don't always see it. So so there have been a few instances where people have made this mistake, and they've either been ineligible because of it, and just it could be a typo, and they don't actually mean to go into production within 10 months of the deadline. But if you put in an earlier date than that, you're automatically ineligible. Or in some instances, one of the projects had an earlier date and then it's taken out of the slate completely, provided you've had more than 3 projects in the slate originally, because you need 3 eligible projects in the slate in order to be selected. But if you have more than 3 projects in the slate, and one of them you put in for one of them a date that is sooner than the 10 months, that project will be taken out of the slate and you will lose money accordingly. So that's why it's in red. It's important. It can make the difference between being eligible or ineligible, or having all your projects supported.
And I think that now it is a bit different than before. Before, if it was a very obvious mistake, they might contact you and say, you know, you made a very obvious mistake here. I presume that you're not going to go into production, especially when all your strategies are that you're not actually starting for another, year and a half, and all your strategies relate to this. But if you have a typo now in the system, they will go with that and deem you immediately ineligible. So they don't have the time now, they don't have the resources now to go back and forth with you like they did before. So it is more important now than ever to make sure that you have everything, and get somebody else to read over your application, somebody else to go through it. That's why taking the time to go through this process instead of doing it the last 2 weeks before a deadline is really important.
I see there's a question in the chat there from Jason about an animated TV series. If you're talking about the project that you're applying for, 44 minutes is fine if that's the total duration of the series. I'm not sure if that was your question, but you can respond in the chat. Okay, so eligible activities for the short film. It needs to be either an animation, documentary, or fiction project of maximum 20 minutes. It can be one-off or series of short formats. No previews, advertising films, pilots, trailers, teasers, or demos. So it needs to be a short film in and of itself, not a pilot or an advertising film of any kind. The director must be an emerging talent. So that is someone that can have some professional experience, but who has not yet directed a project that would be eligible for support, seeking guidance and support towards making their first commercial audiovisual work. So they could have had festival success, for example, with a previous work, but this should be their first commercial audiovisual work. And they have disallowed short films in slates where they have deemed that the director was not an emerging talent. Again, it doesn't really affect the overall slate. Will it affect the overall amount of money available? But they will just take it out of the slate and not support it. It doesn't make the slate ineligible.
And it's a really important, but I think it's a really good idea to put in a short. And, because if it's not evaluated, like you don't have to put in the strategies in it, you have to put in the synopsis of it in the creative dossier, and you have to just put some details about it, but you don't have to put in a huge amount. And it is a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest, because by putting in a short film, when you're discussing about the company and the company presentation, and you're talking about the company and where you want the company to to go and how you want it to grow and the ethos of the company, you can talk about the importance of emerging talent to you and to your company. And this is a perfect way of supporting emerging talent by helping a young director with their first short film. Like, maybe you might have them in as a director on one of the other projects, but you want to do a short first with them to, basically test them out. So it looks really good. Basically, if you do put it in. So we would recommend it. Like, you don't have to put it in, but I would recommend it anyway.
Yeah.
A
lot of the slates supported didn't have a short film, so it's by no means a must. But as you say, it ticks that box about supporting emerging talent and having a strategy about discovering and mentoring new talent. So unlike the other projects, the first day of principal photography just has to be after the deadline. That 10-month rule doesn't apply. And as I said earlier, if a short film is deemed ineligible, it doesn't affect the rest of the application. The application remains eligible if all the other conditions are fulfilled. Okay, another important point is that the applicant company must own the majority of the rights to the projects, to all of the projects, through a signed contract. So you do need to include your rights contracts as part of the application, including for the short film. So it's the applicant company must have the majority of the rights, but a 50-50 split with another company is acceptable. And it needs to be a properly signed contract and dated before the deadline. As I said there about the 50-50 split, that's in case of a European co-production only. So if you have a 50-50 split with a UK company, for example, that's not eligible. So it has to be, by European there, they mean countries participating in the media strand. So the duration of the activity is normally not more than 36 months, but again, you can request an extension if you can justify it. And you have to specify the time period in Part A and Part B of the application form. For the eligibility period can only start at the earliest from the date of application. So if you do not specify that at the grant agreement stage, it will start from the date of the signature of the grant agreement. So just when you're thinking of costs that are incurred, just to be aware of that, you the earliest you can have costs begin is on the day of the application. Okay, so these are all ineligible. We won't go through any detail there.
Yeah.
This hasn't changed for a long time, so we discussed what a creative documentary is. So these other documentaries definitely not eligible. Reality shows, game shows, none of those are eligible. And student films and graduation work, not eligible either. So they're going to assess the financial capacity of the companies to see, if you're a very small company and you want to develop 5 very ambitious projects, they'll look whether you have to see whether you have the financial capacity to do so, and also the human resources to do so, the financial resources, but also the human resources to do so. So it's both financial capacity and operational capacity, whether the company has the know-how, qualifications and resources to implement the project. And that's evaluated under the project management criterion in the application. And you can be excluded if you misrepresent any information in the application. Now, the financing, this has changed a lot in the current program. The big difference, it's now lump sum based. So there's a particular amount that you can apply for depending on the genre and whether it's a one-off or a series. And that is the only amount you can apply for. And there's a budget calculator which does the work for you. When you put in the type of project that you're applying for, you'll get your total amount. So the maximum EU grant is the sum of the lump sums that are in this budget calculator that we mentioned. And they have assigned the amounts of the lump sums based on the average amount that requested in the previous Slate funding calls. Now, I know that a lot of the animation companies think that the amount for animated feature films, it's very low. It's 55,000 for a one-off animation project, 60 for a series. So it, where animation can be a lot more expensive. We have made this case, but this is what it is for the moment, and you have to go with the lump sum calculator and what is available. If your financial capacity is deemed to be good when they check it, the pre-financing you'll get at signature of contract is 70%, and that's for the total slate. So it's quite attractive money, and it's you get it at an early stage, which is good. The 30%, remaining 30% is available at the end of the project when you have delivered everything you've said that you will deliver. Because it's a lump sum grant, you don't have to do financial reporting. The reporting is based on outputs and deliverables, but more to come on that.
And just to say there, if the financial capacity is good, if they have a calculator and they work this out, so if they figure the financial capacity is weak, it depends on the profits from previous years in your accounts. You will get like it depends, but it can be like 15 to 20% upfront, or 10, I think it's 10 to 15% upfront rather than the 70%. So then you get 10 to 50% upfront, and then you get an interim payment as well. So if it does fail that financial capacity test, you still do get some funding upfront.
Right, so these are the amounts that we were speaking about, depending on whether it's a one-off or a series, and depending on the genre. So as said, there are animations 55,000 or 60,000 for a series. Creative documentaries, a one-off is 30,000. For a series, it's 35,000. And for fiction, it depends on the budget. If it's below the 5 million mark, 45,000, above 5 million, 60,000. And if it's a series, then 55,000 for below 5 million, between 5 million, 20 million, 75,000, and more than 20 million is 100,000. And the short film is 10,000 euro. Again, that's attractive money for very little. You don't have to do reporting even on the short film. So it's another reason to include it, because you get 10,000 and it can be put towards the development and the production costs of the short film.
Now I can take over from you here, and I can go through the award criteria. We've put the award criteria, the detailed award criteria in for Slate only, just to show you how it's all laid out. Now there are detailed evaluation criteria as well under the other calls too, but we're going into detail for Slate. So it's very concise wording in the award criteria, and it matches up mostly with the questions in the application form. Okay, so the idea is that you would have the award criteria open right beside you while you're filling in your application form. So it's broken down into points system, and I think for this year you sort of have to get an A in your application. It's around 82 points. Not sure what it is this year. I think it's usually around the 80 mark to get in, and it depends on the quality of the applications going in. The amount of applications is how high that the mark would be. So for relevance is 35 points, quality of content and activities is 30 points, project management is 20, and dissemination is 15. There is now a quality threshold of 70 points out of 100, which means that you have to get over 70 if you're going to be in competition. So even if there's budget left over in their pot, any applications below 70 will not get funded. And the new transversal priorities and bringing anniversary are very important, and you'll see how they play out in the award criteria here. And with marketing, they're trying to focus on strategies to reach audiences at an early stage. So we'll go through them. So the relevance, right? So it's relevance of the project in relation to the call's objectives and targeted projects. So 35 points. And read the calls, the objectives of the call, because they are important when it comes to the award criteria. So for Slate, it's very much about relevance and added value of the proposed slate to improve the company's position on the European and international market in relation to the following. Okay, so it's really important for Slate to understand that this is company funding, it's company development funding, but how it's marked and how it's looked at is you have to be very strategic in the projects that you pick. You have to pick projects that are going to help grow the company in whatever way you want to go. So whether it's new markets, new genres, new platforms, whatever it is, whatever way you see it growing, those projects that you pick should match those ambitions. Okay, there should be something in it. So listening, so it's co-production approach. So you don't have to go into co-production in these, but it does help because it's right here. And we had our own meeting with Brussels the other day about issues with last year's projects and applications. And what they said was, it's like just one thing to drill home to our applicants is to read and deal with every single one of these things that are on the page right now. Don't just pick one and ignore the others, because the way the evaluation works is that they have to evaluate every little thing. So please deal with each of these. So it's the co-production approach. If you don't have co-producers on, you need to explain why or who you're planning to get, or because they understand that it's very hard to do a production now without a co-production. So partnerships with players from other countries, including from countries with a different production capacity. They are pushing for, where we are considered a bigger country, to companies from bigger countries to help companies from smaller countries, and in turn it'll help their industry to grow. So the idea is that we use our expertise from the bigger countries to help those companies. So that's what they're trying to build. Like, again, you don't have to do it, but again, it would help. Visibility at major film festivals and physical and online markets. Make sure that you have a good festival strategy. Capacity to increase the company's turnover, and the capacity to increase the number, ambition, and size of the projects in development. Okay. Now the next, so that's 15 points. Then for 10 points is the ability of the company to adapt. Maybe that was that 10 points? I don't think that was 10. Ability of the company to adapt to a competitive and changing audiovisual landscape by being innovative. These are your 10 innovative points. How are you dealing with finance? Do you have any innovative ways that you're doing fine? They don't want to see the tried and tested traditional ways of funding. It's complete, the landscape has completely changed over the last few years, as you all know. So they want to see how you're approaching this and how you're going to be sustainable over the next few years and how you're going to grow by looking at new ways of doing things, whether that's distribution or genres, formats, platforms, emerging talent, or new territories. And here are your EU agenda points. So you've got 5 points for a more sustainable, environmentally respectful industry. And then you got 5 points for gender balance, inclusion, diversity, and representativeness. So for the B, they're all B here, adequacy of the strategies presented to ensure a more sustainable and environmentally respectful industry. When they brought this in first, they've left it fairly vague and they've left it fairly open. So, but initially they had, I think that the main strategies that people have put in was, we're using reusable cups in the office and we have recycling bins, and that's fine. That was the first out, but now they're really expecting you to do a lot more for that, to really be thinking about it. So this can be in terms of the content as well. You can do it per project. It could be the overall company policy. It could be training your staff to understand the importance of it. How you're dealing with different departments, whether you have, you're working with the Albert calculator or You've got a greening consultant, whatever way you are working, but make sure the detail is here. And then again, with the gender balance, inclusion, diversity, and representativeness, when they put this, this one in first, what they noticed that it was all about gender balance, and people just focus on, well, we've got 50% women in our company, but they didn't. Nobody was dealing with diversity, inclusion, and representativeness, and that's what they expect now to see in applications. And this is across all applications. So whatever you're applying for with these two with these two areas, think across all of this. Think inclusion, diversity, and representative. Deal with all of these, because that's what they're expecting to see.
And for both of those, they want to see an actual strategy and a plan that will be implemented, and not just what you're doing right now. They want to see what your plans are for the future, your strategies around these two areas.
Yeah. So for the quality and the content and activities, it's 30 points. So it's the quality of the works in the slate and their potential to reach audiences at European and international level. So 15 points for the quality and creative potential of the works. So strength and distinctiveness of your ideas, subject matter, project focus, and dramatic potential. Quality of the writing, narrative choices, character development in the world of the story. Creative potential, quality of the visual approach and artwork. And this will all go into an attachment called the creative dossier that you will put all these details in. Then it's 15 points for the potential to reach audiences at European and international levels. So this isn't just for your home audience. This call is for how you're going to reach beyond Ireland. So transnational appeal, including for online audiences, concept and subject of the works. And then deal with each of these. The creative team, right? Potential to works cross borders, taking into account the creative team, the intended cast, or the international ambition with regard to the cast. Deal with cast. The collaboration strategy with non-national partners. The new Creative Europe program is all about collaboration. So the more you're working with partners across all aspects, distribution, production, whatever it is, but just talk about your collaboration strategy. Then we got 20 points for the project management, which is divided into two. So you got 10 points for the development strategy, and that's a two-pronged question. So it's the development of the development done so far in the project, and also the plan of what you're doing. So here you're talking about the schedule, literally a month-by-month schedule for, and it's not just a creative development, it's the whole project. So what market you're going to, and make sure it's all in there, because there will be peers, like producers are going to be reading this, so they're going to know the what you're picking, and that you know that you're going to the right markets for your project. And so make sure that you go into detail in this as well, and don't just do a copy paste for each project, even if they look similar, and that's similar what you're going to be doing, but just do really make it project specific. Then we got the finance and strategy, which is 10 points. And again, this is another two-pronged question. So you've got in the question, where it is, you have the financing for the development of it, and then you got the financing for the actual production of it. And the way that's evaluated here is the adequacy of the production costs of each work, to make sure that it makes sense, and to the development budget as well. The adequacy of finance and strategy compared to the estimated production costs in terms of the awareness of suitable potential financial partners and territories targeted. So be aware, be ambitious, but be realistic about what you can get from those territories. And then in terms of diversity of sources of funding foreseen, they don't want just your national funders. They don't want, preferably they don't want just public funding either, but they do want a diverse range of funding. And then the last area is 15 points for the dissemination, which is marketing strategy and the distribution plan. Now, the marketing strategy, it used to be a lot more points, but it's gone down. So it's only 5 points, right? But it's still 5 points. But what they're focusing on, what they want to see is how you're going to reach audiences at an early stage. Now, again, this can be B2B as well. So this is how you're approaching your financial, your financial partners that you're hoping for at the markets, how you're going to reach them, and also how you're going to reach your audience at the early stage. And again, deal with all of these, your USP, target audience markets, innovative marketing, audience engagement tools, and promotional activities. They will expect you to deal with each of these. Then you got 10 points for the distribution strategy, when you're talking about the audience, distribution methods foreseen. And this is, you know, this is for the first run and also for afterwards. Where do you see the project going? And, you know, and you don't have to, I know it's very, you know, you're thinking, but this is what we need the development funding for, is to figure this out. And it's like, yes, we understand it, but you have to have some idea of where you see your project ending up. Okay, and who your audience is. So distribution partners in place are envisaged. You don't have to have them in place. It helps. But if you have some idea, even LOIs, anything here, we find that letters are very important here. So if you are talking to somebody and you met them at a market, you know, in Galway, or you're over in Content London and you were talking to them there, and you never, but they seemed really interested in you, you met in the lift, but get something off them that they're, you know, they're interested in it and they would like to, you know, stay in touch about it. All those things help here. If you talk about a partner in the strategy, they want to see that there's some proof that you have been talking to them afterwards. Then it's awareness of the markets in European international vision. You know, that you know, this is markets about, you know, territories, but also the markets of that you're going to the right markets as well, you know, for that's right for your project. And then relevance of the choice of territories. Now, again, this is the application. We're not going to go through the application. As you can see, there's a part A, there's a part B, which is a Word doc, really, which is where you'll spend most of your time. There's a part C, which is statistics. And then you've got various templates that you're, and not only templates, but that various attachments that you will be attaching to your submission. If you are applying, please contact us. We can help you and we will help you. And we will be able to steer you and letting you know, like, how much, how to navigate the new system, because, you know, we're living it every day. So we're getting used to it and we're still stumped at times. So it is quite a difficult portal, the funding and tenders portal. So please get in touch with us. Okay. Again, these mandatory annexes, the lump sum calculator, as Eibhlín was talking about, creative dossier where you put all your projects in, proof of ownership and rights. It's an Excel sheet that you fill in that the shareholders are EU, that they're from media countries. That's what they want to see. And then you've got your supporting documents of co-production, distribution, and financing. If you have anybody interested in it, they love to see, they don't like to be the first to jump. So they love to see international partners as well, that, you know, these projects have legs on an international stage. Basically. And ownership of rights. Sorry, that was for the projects. And then you've got the ownership and control of the company. More about the application. I'm not going to go through this. There is work packages. When you download it, you will be freaked out a bit, because there is work packages and there are deliverables. Work packages is one per project. It's not that, you know, owners, they've in the call document, they're very clear about what they want and what they expect, and what they don't want. There's an awful lot of what they don't want, so don't get scared by it. But we will go through all this again for you. Like for the deliverables, like Eibhlín was saying earlier, like they're not looking for a final audit anymore. They're not looking for invoices and receipts on how you spent your money. They're looking for deliverables, and this is exactly what they want. They don't want any more. So they want these 6 deliverables per project. So, but they've made it quite open because they understand that it's development and things change. So they said updated creative development, update on research work undertaken in visual material, update on key artistic crew and casting and the financing. That you can see the word updated is very important, because no matter what you do, it's going to be updated. Okay, if you say one of your deliverables is script 4 of this project, and you didn't reach script 4 and you can't put it up, that means you are not you know, applying with or you're not dealing with your contract, because you're contractually obliged to put up these deliverables. So that's why they've made it easy on producers. Just do an updated, and then here you can show what you've actually done and that you've actually done what you said you were going to do. Okay, so that's Slate.
Before we go on to co-development, Paul had a question there in the chat, which is a difficult one, really. I think as an established writer and producer, would I be eligible as an emerging director if the short film was my first directing role? I think that they're going to assess that on a case-by-case basis. You could make a case for it.
Yeah.
Certainly if you've never directed before, but I'm not sure how they would react to that. Orla, have you any thoughts?
No, I mean, technically that, like, they go with, well, it's written in the call document, and written in the call document is that you haven't directed before. So I would say that, but we'll check it. Why don't we check it? We'll check with Brussels and we'll see. But I think that yeah, I don't see an issue with that. And then if a director has directed commercials but not shorts, would they be eligible? Yes, because commercials wouldn't be a commercially distributed project that would be eligible for media funding. So yeah, so that would be fine. You can definitely go from commercials. Yeah.
Okay, so we go on to European co-development. This call isn't open yet. It will open tomorrow, but you can still access it on the portal and read the call document, but it should open tomorrow. So this is the scheme that replaced single project funding. We had single project funding in the last program where one European company could apply for one single support to develop one single project. Now it's more complicated. It's still one single project, but you have to apply with another company in another European country. And again, the focus on this new program is all about collaboration, and that's why they've brought in this scheme. So it's towards reinforcing the European added value of support to the development of individual projects. So the deadline is the 26th of April. Next year, you'll hear news, good or otherwise, in October. The budget is 6.5 million. And the duration of projects is usually 30 months. Again, that can start on the date of application or on the date of the grant agreement, depending what you choose. So the objectives are to support the cooperation among European production companies that are developing works with a strong international audience potential. So again, this is aimed at companies that are working internationally or are choosing to work internationally. So you can apply for support to develop a single, so just one project, unlike the Slate, animation, creative documentary or fiction project with high creative value and cultural diversity, wide cross-border exploitation potential, intended for commercial exploitation either through a cinema release, TV broadcast, or on digital platforms. So again, they want to support projects that are international and that are going, that will have a commercial potential and get a wide distribution. So the project must be co-developed by a minimum of 2 European independent audiovisual production companies from at least 2 different countries participating in the media program. They need to have signed a co-development agreement, and this co-development agreement needs to specify the division of tasks and the collaboration on creative aspects. So they don't want to support projects that are just collaborating on a financial basis. It must be a real collaboration on creative aspects of the project. So the application is made by a coordinator, and the coordinator needs to demonstrate the track record. The partners in the project, partner or partners, all they need to demonstrate is that they're a European audiovisual company, so that their main objective in their company memorandum associations and so on is that their main objective is to create audiovisual content. But the coordinator, the main applicant must demonstrate a recent experience in producing internationally distributed works. So this is similar to Slate. The only difference is you just need to demonstrate a track record with one previous work since 1st of January 2016. So a fiction, animation, or documentary project, one-off or series of minimum 24 minutes. Again, if it's a VR project, the duration doesn't apply. They need to have been actually released in cinema or broadcast or on a digital platform in at least 3 foreign countries before the deadline. So the distribution needs to have taken place before the deadline. And if it's broadcast, you need to have 3 different broadcasters in different countries involved. And all of the releases were of commercial nature. Again, festival screenings don't count. The company needs to have been the sole production company, or in the case of a co-production, the major co-producer in the finance plan or the delegate producer. Or you can use a personal on-screen credit as producer, but that's only for the CEO or a shareholder in the company. And again, it has to be producer, not co-producer, associate producer, executive producer.
And we have in the past that, if you don't have the credit, if the company doesn't have a credit, and if you don't have the credit as the CEO and your shareholders don't have a credit, if you are working closely with somebody and you've got a small company and you're happy to bring them on, you can bring on a shareholder as long as it's registered in the CRO before the application deadline. You can bring on that shareholder as part of your company and they can have the track record. Obviously, bringing a shareholder into your company is, don't take it lightly. So make sure that is somebody you trust, but that it is an option. They don't have to be a shareholder for 3 years or anything. They can just come on just before the deadline, but just make sure that it's all registered with CRO and it's all good for it.
And there's no minimum number of shares. So it could be a shareholder for 1%.
Exactly.
For example. Yeah. So it's an option, but again, as we said, not to be done lightly. It has implications for other things with your company. So
yes.
Not to be done lightly, but an option. So before we go any further on the co-development, I suppose we should say there might be people here today who don't know of companies that they can co-develop with. So we can try and help there by contacting the other media desks, or sometimes there's catalogs from markets or from events. And we did a matchmaking event for co-development in 2021, for example, but it was based on documentary, but we still have that catalogue that we can share with you. So if you are looking for a partner to co-develop with, you have time because the call's just launching tomorrow and the deadline is until April. So do contact us if you're at a stage where you want to apply for the funding. You are check that you're eligible first. Or you could look for a partner that would be the coordinator and have the eligibility that you don't have, but you just have to be very careful there that they haven't been funded by Slate funding in the current year, because that wouldn't make them eligible to go for co-development next year. Or if they want to go for Slate funding in January, well then they can't apply for the co-development in April. So they're all the things you have to think about if you're looking for a partner to bring the eligibility for you. But if you think you're eligible and all you need is a partner in another country, do come and talk to us and we'll try and help you there. Can't promise, but we will try and help. Okay, so applicants are encouraged to develop strong and innovative collaborations at creative and financing levels. So again, they want to support projects that are collaborating on the creative aspects of the project. So that could be the script writing or doing some of the documentaries research in one country or doing some of the documentary filming in some country, in the other country. So something that is more than just a financial arrangement. They also are looking to see how authentic the collaboration is. So in the assessment of the projects, they're going to be able to see, is this a real collaboration or not? So it's important that it's not just a financial arrangement in order to get the media funding. So they're looking for applicants to develop strategies for marketing and distribution from the outset to improve the audience reach. So it's important to have the strong marketing distribution strategies, and develop adequate strategies to ensure a more sustainable and more environmentally respectful industry, and to ensure gender balance, inclusion, diversity and representativeness. So it's the same for all the media schemes. You need to have a strategy around greening, you need to have a strategy around diversity and inclusion. And that can include, you know, accessibility measures for people with disabilities. It's also important to think about if you're working with different European nationalities in your company, or different languages, anything at all around that area, you should include here in order to score the maximum points.
Just got a quick question here from Shabnam, that if I was a co-production partner in a previous Slate as the sub, not main company, can I apply for Slate this year? Yes. So for Slate application, Slate is different from co-development. For Slate, it's one applicant. There's only one applicant that applies. So if you've got if that applicant has a range of projects with co-producers and you're one of those co-producers, then that's fine. Yes, because you weren't the applicant in the last call, yes, you can most definitely apply for Slate this year. And there's another one saying, in terms of co-production development, does this film previously been on Netflix satisfy the 3 broadcasters rule?
Well, it does, provided you can get a revenue report, which is difficult to get from Netflix. But if you have a sales agent selling on to Netflix, they should be able to provide you with one. And then in that revenue report, we'd need to see that there were 3 transactions in 3 different foreign countries. Mm-hmm. So, but if you have that, yes, that would make you eligible. Okay, so as we said, this is replacing the single project scheme. So you're looking for development support for one project, either an animation or a creative documentary or a fiction project, which could either be a feature film or a TV drama series. And again, they have to be intended for commercial exploitation. So the durations there, again, is depending on the platform. If it's for cinema, it's 60 minutes, no matter what the genre is. If it's TV or digital, it's 24 minutes for animation, 50 for documentary, 90 for fiction. And again, if it's a series, it can be a combination of smaller durations that make up those total durations. Back to this important point, you need to put a date for a first day of principal photography that is more than 10 months or more after the deadline, or else you'll be automatically deemed ineligible. And we found this as well. People think that if they're ineligible, that they will still get an evaluation report. You won't. It won't even be sent to evaluators, so you don't even get the feedback. Because some people who aren't successful still find that the feedback letters are very useful, but you won't even get that if you're ineligible from the get-go. You'll just be considered ineligible and will never be sent forward for evaluation.
And also what we found was it was difficult, because we found out after the fact as well, was that it used to be the case where if you were deemed ineligible, that they checked the eligibility criteria first in Brussels before going any further, and they still do that. But before, they would let the applicant know within a few weeks, within a month, saying, we're not putting your application forward to the evaluators because you're deemed ineligible. You don't get that letter anymore. You have to wait the 5 months or however long it is until everybody gets their feedback results at the end. So, and it's only then you find out that you're ineligible. Now it's cruel, but that's just the way it is. So, and again, that's down to resources that they have in there. So just be aware of that.
Okay, I'm just looking at a question there from Jeremiah about if you've submitted an application where a co-producer was to bring finance and then it doesn't materialize, will a percentage of the grant be clawed back, or the entire grant would no longer be affected? The co-development be a co-development, but the development funding would come from the applicant. So that's a very complicated question, but basically the reporting is never financial. So if you are awarded co-development support, obviously it's based on working with the other company, and you need to be able to provide the deliverables that you say you will provide in the application. So provided if something happens and you're not working closely with the other company, or they don't do what you expect them to do in the lifetime of the project, provided you're able to provide all the deliverables that you say that you will, you won't have to renege on the grant. So, but it's something that we'd need to look at it on a case-by-case basis, but because you're not doing financial reporting anymore, as long as you can deliver what you say you will deliver, you can continue on with the project. What happens is that the coordinator, the applicant company, gets all of the money and then shares it based on what you say in the co-development application. You share it with the other company. So the coordinator has some control in that case, and the coordinator will get 70% of the costs up front, provided the financial capacity is okay, and then the 30% when all the deliverables are signed off by the agency. But what you have in your co-development agreement doesn't have to follow that. As coordinator, you might want to give less than the 70% of the costs to the other company and keep back some money for when they provide all the deliverables to you that you require from them. So it's something to work out in advance in your co-development agreement. Have you anything to add to that, Orla? Because it's a complicated question.
Yeah, no, it is a complicated one, but no, I think that's and the way it works now is because it's deliverables, that they expect deliverables throughout the lifetime of the awards. So before it used to be a case of, you know, you don't get in touch with media until the final report, you know, 3 years later, but now they do expect deliverables throughout, depending on what you're delivering. So you will have a project manager. So there's a lot more back and forth with your project manager in Brussels. So that's how, you know, issues like that, they expect to be, you know, sort of contacted, and how you're going to deal with it. So yeah, so that's a tough one.
Okay. So eligible activities, the coordinator or one of the partners must own the majority of the rights to the project through a signed contract. Equal sharing of rights between coordinator and or eligible partners is accepted. So again, the 50-50 rule applies, but again, it needs to be with one of the partners. So what's important here is to note that it isn't the company with the track record that needs to have the rights. So you could be the coordinator company applying, have the eligibility, be eligible to apply, but that the partner could have, that isn't eligible possibly, could own the majority of the rights. So the company who is the coordinator doesn't need to have the rights to the project as long as the partner does. So that makes it a bit more open, and you don't have to share the rights between the companies. They can rest with one of the companies. So again, the start of the action, you can either choose to start from a fixed date from the date of application, or otherwise it starts on the signature of the grant agreement, and you can't really figure out when that will be in advance. So it's probably easier in every case, and you can have your costs start earlier if you go from the date of submission.
And just a question there from Jeremiah is that when any word on when decisions are due for the current co-development round? The deadline was in September. They're saying February. So that's what they're still aiming for. It can get delayed, like you were saying, like the previous co-development one was 7 months. So it can get delayed depending on resources in Brussels, depending on lots of factors. So, but they are aiming for February. So it can take 5-6 months, or even up to 7.
Yes, so you need to have a co-development agreement. we can provide you with a kind of standard co-development agreement, but it's not a co-development agreement for this particular scheme. So you need to adapt it and put in everything you need for comfort when you're dealing with another company and sharing up the money with them and so on. And, you know, when you provide them with the initial finance and when they get the final monies based on deliverables and so on, you need to write all of that into what is a standard development agreement in the industry. So you need to show how you will collaborate on the development of the creative aspects and storytelling. So how are you going to divide up the work, who's doing what, and it needs to be both creative and financial. The distribution of roles and responsibilities within the project, including the division of tasks, the budget split, the administrative cooperation and risk management. So there is no template available, so it's something you have to do yourself. And then it's one of the deliverables that you supply. You supply an updated version of it at the final reporting stage. So the good thing about the co-development scheme is that it's very attractive from the point of view of funding. Each partner can apply for up to €60,000, or if it's a TV series with an intended production budget of 20 million or more, you can apply for up to €100,000. So you can have more than one partner, of course. So if you're applying as coordinator with two partners, that could be a development budget of up to €180,000. So it is very attractive financing from that point of view. That said, you know, just because it's 60,000 as a maximum, it may not make sense for all the partners involved to get that amount of money. So it needs to be realistic based on the work each partner is doing. If they're doing much less than the coordinator, it doesn't make sense for them to get the same amount of money, possibly. So just to bear that in mind. Normally the pre-financing is 70% and all the payments go to the coordinator, as we said earlier. Again, if they're not happy with your financial capacity, they may provide the money in interim stages when you provide more information. That's to be agreed with your project officer. And again, the division of the EU grant and how to make payments can be defined in the co-development agreement. So unlike Slate funding, this is a customized lump sum. In Slate, it's a set lump sum, you know, so the amounts are set out in advance depending on the genre. But for co-development, it's customized. So it depends on what you apply for. Is it going to be 60,000 for the coordinator and 40,000 for the partner, or whatever you decide on? So that's why it's called a customized lump sum. And because it's a customized lump sum, there is a budget that you have to fill out, unlike Slate, which is a very simple budget calculator. And we should say about the detailed budget that we're not going to go into it today, and that's for the technical sessions that we're happy to do. But the budget is a very generic budget for schemes even outside of Creative Europe. So you have to kind of adapt it to make it suit what you are doing. This is true for the TV scheme as well. It isn't like any budget you'll ever see as a production budget for the TV scheme. So you need to adapt it to suit what you are doing. But again, we can help you with that. So the co-development is a bit more difficult because of the detailed production budget that you have to fill out, and it has to be for yourself and for the partners involved. But again, there isn't financial reporting. Because it's a lump sum, the reporting is all based on outputs and deliverables. And last year, it was a 50% co-financing rate for co-development, but they've increased that to a 70% co-financing rate. So that means that the media can provide up to 70% of the total costs.
And just, you know, and just to sort of get into everybody says that this is a grant. This isn't repayable. You know, under exceptional circumstances, they can claw back money, but mostly this is a grant. So it's free money.
Provided
It is
you
a lot of work.
deliver everything you
As long
say.
as you deliver everything, and there is a lot of work in the application, but just bear that in mind. So unlike other funders, that this is a grant. So I'll just fly through this. So the award criteria for co-development compared to Slate. So the relevance, as you can see, and I'm not going to go through it in detail, but it is there in the call document. So the relevance is 40 points. The quality of the content is 20, project management is 25, and dissemination is 15. Okay, so as you can see, the relevance really is all about the, how you're working together. Project management is about that too. So it's really the guts of 65 points is about how you're collaborating together. And that's the remit of this call. It's really to encourage companies to start working together at earlier stages on co-developing projects. So it's really about that, whereas the quality of the content and activities is only 20 points. So as you can see, like this, it's a bit of a shift from the Slate. This is all about the collaboration between the two companies. Again, we have the annexes, the budget, the creative dossier, like Eibhlín was saying, the detailed budget. It's got a mind of its own. It's a macro budget. It's it's quite detailed, but we can help you through it. We need the co-development agreement, proof of ownership of rights, supporting documents, co-production, any LOIs you have, and then the declaration of ownership and control, similar to the other calls. So I'll fly through this. I'm very conscious of time. It's 12:20. So I'm going to fly through this. Now, TV and online content is TV production. Okay, they never used the word production. Previously it was TV programming or TV broadcasting, but now it's TV and online content. But this is for TV production. We don't do film production because Euromage is there. It's EU Council funding, but it's still European funding. So we do TV funding instead. So the deadline for this is quite soon. It's the 17th of January. And then, but there's two deadlines, whereas all the other calls have one deadline. This is two deadlines. And the next one is 16th of May. And then the results then would be, the results for TV is a little shorter because they wouldn't get as many applications. So the resources are better in there. So results will be May and then October. The budget is 22 million. And that's split over the two deadlines. The duration of the projects, 24 months or 36 months of series of more than 2 episodes. So you can apply for a one-off or you can apply for a series. So the idea for this call is to increase the capacity of audiovisual producers to develop and produce strong projects, significant potential to circulate throughout Europe and beyond. Basically the remit of all of these calls. And then to facilitate European and international co-productions within the sector. Strengthen the independence of producers in relation to broadcasters and digital platforms, to enhance the collaboration between operators from different media countries, and then to support the production of high quality works aimed at wide international distribution and promotion to a wide audience, and in particular attention to innovative aspects in contents and financing, again going back to not following the same traditional routes, like really think about how your the financing is diverse in your project. And then showing a clear link with the distribution strategy.
And just to say about the innovative financing, in a way they're looking for you to finance projects in a way that it's not with the usual suspects. So Germany, Austrians having projects funded by Germany, or all the French-speaking countries, Belgium and French-speaking Luxembourg and France and so on, working together. If you can show any kind of innovative way of funding, like getting finance from countries you wouldn't normally work with, that would really help there.
Okay, so the companies, again, like the other calls, need to be independent, European, as in from media country, not UK, audiovisual production company. And then you can be a single applicant or a consortium, right? Consortium means like just you and a partner, really. That can be a consortium. So if you're applying with 2 companies, the coordinator must be the majority producer of the work in terms of rights. So the coordinator, the person, the company applying, has to have the rights to the project. And then if 50-50, the coordinator must be the delegate producer. So this is for production activities for both one-off or series, intended primarily for TV and online exploitation. Minimum length for dramas 90 minutes, animation 24, and creative doc is 50. There has been a lot of back and forth. Well, can we do it for TV but then have a theatrical release? That's okay as long as it's limited, but your main focus needs to be on that TV or online exploitation. So, and that's very clearly seen in your distribution strategies. That's not a theatrical distribution strategy, but it can have a short release depending on your overall distribution strategy. But it is for TV, so just bear that in mind. This works designed to be a series must be submitted as a series, not a pilot or whatever. It has to be submitted as a series. The application must be submitted on the latest, the first day of principal photography. So if you are going into production before, so if you are going into production, say in February, you're not going to be able to apply in May, but you can apply in January. So just make that sure that you have to apply before you go into production. Okay. Or for animation, it's the start of animation for animation projects. So it has to be produced with a significant participation of professionals who are nationals and or residents of media countries. So this is different to the shareholdings. So you can be national or they can just be residents of media countries. And it's broken down like this. So depending on the genre, so if it's fiction, you have to get 50% of 19. So out of all this, you have to get at least 10 points of these roles have to be from media countries. Documentary, then it would be 7 points would be the minimum, and animation then would be 10. Okay. Involving the broadcasting companies. So with this call, you have to have at least 2 broadcasters attached. And these 2 broadcasters really need to be at contracting stage. They have to be, contracts are binding LOCs, but if it's an LOC, they can't have any clauses in, and we'll go through that in a sec by what they're not accepting. So the letters or the contracts have to include conditions, license, price, and period. And for the license period, and again, there's been a lot of back and forth with Brussels and applications for this call, that the pre-sale has to be max 7 years for the licensing period, and a co-production, it has to be max 10 years. And if it's a co-production, it's only considered a co-production if the financial investment is higher than average investment of other partners. And also that's involved in the organization and economic handling of the project.
So it has to be a real co-production in other words. I'll take over from you there.
Yeah.
Orla, if you like. So as we said, you need to have confirmed involvement of a minimum of 2 broadcasters from 2 different media countries in order to be eligible to apply. Now it can be broadcasters or it can be platforms, so linear or non-linear. And it has to be a contract or a binding letter of commitment. And the letter needs to state the amount of the financial involvement and the license term, the license price and the license fee and the license term. And what is not accepted is letters from broadcasters that show preliminary interest, subject to final approval, or agree to buy the work once produced. So we have a whole slide coming up with things that they don't accept. So, even if the letter comes from a broadcaster and says letter of commitment on the top, that doesn't mean it'll be considered a letter of commitment. Do we have the next slide there?
Yeah.
Yes. So documents entitled letter of commitment or deal memo, but where the text clearly only states an intent to acquire. So they won't accept these as binding letters. And if one of these letters is deemed ineligible and you only have 2, well, then you're out, you're ineligible, right? So these are the kind of phrases they don't like to see in letters of commitment. We confirm our interest or our preliminary interest. So interest is not a commitment, so they won't accept that. We are interested in the possibility of acquiring. The participation of XYZ in the project is subject to the approval of a board or something else. We reserve the right not to conclude until we have screened and approved the final version. XYZ confirms their commitment to license the series once the series has been fully financed, completed to a good technical standard, and the contribution to the financing is estimated. It has to be a real price that is outlined in the letter and not just an estimated amount, and is subject to, or we confirm that subject to general approval and financial negotiation. So this letter of interest, it might read like a letter of commitment until it says this letter of interest may in no way be considered to be a contract for the anticipated acquisition of rights. So just be careful when you are getting letters or looking at letters that you consider are letters of commitment, that none of these phrases are in there and that it actually is a binding letter of commitment. Obviously, a contract is better, but if you have a letter, just make sure that it does fulfill what a letter of commitment is. And it is the content of the document that counts, not the title. So saying it's a letter of commitment isn't enough. Okay, so these are other eligibility criteria. You need to have 40% of the financing in place at the time of application, and it must come from third-party sources. So your own investment doesn't count towards the 40%. And this financing must be supported by the binding letters of commitment from broadcasters, distributors, funds, and equity investors. They'll accept tax shelter like Section 481 if it's confirmed by supporting documents from the competent bodies. They don't accept producers and co-producers' own investment, and the media grant doesn't count towards the 40%. There's 5 extra points available if you have a European co-production, so that's a co-production with a company in another media country. But in order to access those 5 points, you need to have a contract or a deal memo, and you need to attach it with the application. The other eligibility criteria is that 50% of the total budget or the estimated financing must come from media countries. So again, this can prove problematic for people working with the UK now because they're out of Creative Europe. So again, check that before you go to all the trouble of making a very complicated application. Again, this is a customized lump sum, so it depends on this detailed budget that you fill out, which again isn't like a production budget, so you have to shoehorn what's in your production budget into this detailed budget. Again, we can help you with that. And it's 20% of the total eligible budget is available as a grant. So it's very attractive money. Media don't take rights in the project, so the rights remain with the independent producer. So it's very attractive funding, which is why a lot of people will apply for it. So it is competitive. Now there are ceilings. It's 20% of the eligible budget, and then there are ceilings that apply. 300,000 is the max for creative documentary, 500,000 for animation. For drama, it depends on the production budget. If it's less than 10 million, it's 500,000. Between 10 and 20 million, it's 1 million, and more than 20 million, 2 million. But I don't think they've given out that 2 million to date that I know of. They've given out the 1 million at times, but again, they're for very ambitious high-end projects. And again, here's the award criteria. It's best to look at the call document and how those are broken down. Again, the quality of the content and activities is 35 points there. So the type of project it is weighted higher there than in the co-development, for example. And the dissemination is very important because if you have any letters that don't fulfill that criteria for a letter of commitment, but you have 2 contracts or letters of commitment with broadcasters, but you have other letters that are more letters of interest, you can include them under another section in the application, which will help to show that the project will be distributed widely. So they really want to support projects that have the potential to be distributed widely in Europe. So having a distributor or sales agent attached to the project can help. Having letters from other broadcasters outside of the main broadcasters, that can help as well. So there's 30 points there going for the distribution potential. Again, just that quality threshold of 70, but you probably need higher than that to be selected.
Yeah, perfect. Sorry.
And then we're not going to go into the detail of how to apply. We can do that in either a Zoom call or a technical session. But these are the mandatory annexes that you have to upload to the portal. And these are the work packages. They're outlined in the call document, and as are the deliverables that that you have to upload to the system during the lifetime of the project.
And just to make, just to go back one sec, to go back to this slide here, what, you know, everyone was talking about having those extra letters in from, you know, the LOIs. I think it is important, like if you only need to have 40% of the funding, of the total production funding in place, of the production budget in place, from third-party sources, but you have to talk about where that other 60% is going to come from. So the more LOIs, the more, you know, that you have related to that, the more you have that in your application, it's better. It can be in your strategy, but if you don't have the letters to back it up, it can be difficult. So just be aware of that. Okay. Through.
Okay, Luke has a question there about deadlines. There's only going to be one European co-development deadline per year and one Slate funding deadline per year. There will be 2 deadlines for TV, but that's it. Now, they will probably launch the calls for 2024 at the end of next year, so you could start working on applications at the end of 2023 for the 2024 deadlines, but it is only the one deadline for co-development and one deadline for Slate.
Okay, any other questions? Like we said, the with the Slate coming up on the 25th of January, which isn't very far away, the most important thing now is to get those letters in. It's like if you're applying for the TV call as well, those letters, you need to get them in now, because if you're chasing them after Christmas, with Christmas in the middle, it's going to be difficult to get those letters, contract, you know, or letters of commitment and the LOIs and the contracts as well. So make sure you have them in first, and then start working on your application. But yeah, and you do have a bit more time then for co-development, and do get in contact with us if you have any questions on it or eligibility, or if you want to just talk to your projects. We're happy to help.